Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
It seemed to her that she would always be among the losers, but it was just an episode in her life. 5 years of school are behind her. Tomorrow was the graduation ceremony. Kelly couldn't believe this was it. The next thing was sailing on her own. Some of the girls were able to arrange jobs in advance. When internships were held in schools, Kelly was also offered by the director of the Lyceum, where she worked for a month and a half in the 5th year. Only more hustling classmate Betty has already hustled and first applied to that Lyceum, and there she was gladly taken. But Kelly was not discouraged. She'd find a job for sure. And now graduation. Her dorm roommates had curlers on from the night before. Everyone wanted to look beautiful for graduation. But Kelly does not need any curlers. Her hair is naturally thick, curly, straight brown waterfall. In general, Kelly is beautiful, brown eyes, light skin, slender, like a twig. The girls even envy her a little. "Kelly, you don't have to work at all. Why do you want to go to school?" Kathy said, "You just wink at some millionaire and he'll call you to the registry office." "Yeah, by the leg." Kelly waved me off. "What do I need millionaires for? They're all fat, bald. What's that all of a sudden?" The girls laughed, because while he was making his millions, the years passed. "And I don't need millionaire girls. I want to meet my love." Kelly confessed, just once and for all. Who doesn't dream of that? Nancy sighed. "That's what I want too. But that's just the way it is in the movies. In life, wherever you look, all the guys are either some kind of underachievers, or how can I put it mildly? They're not interested in girls. Oh, Nancy, you like to exaggerate everything." Lisa disagreed with her. "I'm like Kelly. I believe my soulmate is out there somewhere." And the girls chatted and chatted, forgetting the time. And when they looked at the clock, they gasped. "It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Tomorrow's presentation at 10 o'clock. Urgent, all to bed." And in the morning, the room was in turmoil. The girls painted eyelashes, did each other's hair, dressed up, and then all rushed, clacking their heels down the stairs. Wendy the janitor saw them off with a smile, wondering how fast time had flown by. Just yesterday, these girls were very young, and today they were so beautiful. It was crowded at the award ceremony. Yesterday's students, teachers, parents. Kelly looked at her classmates with a little sadness at whose parents were able to come. Her friends' moms had come too, and Nancy's dad, an important man in a jacket. And no one came to Kelly's. There was no one. The year Kelly went to college, her mom was gone. She was the only relative in the girl's life, and it so happened that she raised Kelly alone, and never said a word about her father, neither bad nor good, as if he was not even in nature. Kelly and her mother lived in a small working village without anyone's help and support, and when her mom was gone, Kelly didn't even want to go to school. And only her mother's words shortly before she left prevented her from doing so. "You, my daughter, go here, get an education. In this life, you only need to rely on yourself." Mom said the day before, as if she had a premonition of something. "And forgive me, I'm not a good helper." And that's the only time she ever mentioned her father, like Kelly. He's a big name in town. He must be in a position of power somewhere. And that was it. By morning, Mom was gone. Kelly overcame herself and went away to study. It was hard for her without support and only payments for loss of breadwinners saved, and also worked part-time girl in a night stall in the dormitory. That's how she lived, and she didn't look for her father. Somehow she didn't gather her courage. And how could she look for him? She will not be all brown-eyed, dark-haired famous people suspect paternity. Let her live as she knows how. Did not know about her for so many years, and now do not need. Kelly was distracted from sad thoughts by fanfare. The rector came out, then the dean. They said something. Then the awarding of diplomas. Everything went great. After the newly minted specialists, the whole company rushed to the embankment in a street cafe. So they decided to spend their studentship simply and cheerfully, and all succeeded. Late at night, standing by the river, the girls dreamed. Now all roads are open before them. A new and happy life was ahead of them, and in a week they had to move out of the dormitory. It was easier for Nancy and Lisa. Their parents had rented apartments for them. Kathy had moved in with her aunt temporarily. But Kelly had a lot of work to do. She couldn't just rent an apartment. She just didn't have the money. So she looked for an apartment, and the janitor helped her. Grandma Wendy had a relative who lived downtown. Her younger sister had recently buried her husband. Her kids have their own lives, and she has a 4-bedroom apartment. Can you believe it? That's what Wendy's grandma said. That's a lot of utility bills. She keeps complaining to me that half of her money is spent on the bills. She says we should get a tenant, so she asked me to find her a place. And maybe I'm not suitable for her. Kelly sighed. And how much will she charge me? Oh, don't worry, waved his hand janitoress. You will get along with her. She, of course, a woman with a temper, not for nothing that all her life married to the chief of police was, and with her older son does not communicate, although he lives in the city. But that's their personal affairs, so she is quite adequate and will not take much, you'll see. There was nothing to do, Kelly agreed. The same day she went to the address Wendy had given her. The door was opened by a woman about 60 years old in a Chinese kimono, with some impossible hairstyle on her head. In her arms was a bald cat. Kelly, seeing the animal, even shuddered. She didn't understand why they had to have such monsters, but she didn't let on. She introduced herself, explained why she was here. Yes, Wendy told me. The woman answered with a yawn. Come in. My name is Vanessa. The apartment was lavish, the kind of furnishings Kelly had only seen in movies, and she was confused. And the landlady didn't have enough to pay the utilities. Anyway, here we go. Vanessa began, scratching her sphinx behind the ear. I won't charge you anything for the room. Only the utilities will be shared. And you'll also help me around the house. Clean, cook, go to the store, go and look after Tom, if anything. Tom? Kelly was surprised. Yes, for Tom. Vanessa replied defiantly and pointed at the cat. Or do you think he has a bad name? No, do you? Kelly nodded in confusion. It's a good name, and he's a very nice cat. Although, to be honest, the name Tom in her mind suggested a different animal, a fluffy, fat cat, like she and Mom used to have, but not this one, like the chicken in the store. What can you do? It wasn't the animal's fault. Kelly smiled. Cute kitty, cute kitty, cute. Vanessa's smile blossomed into a smile. The cat meowed something unhappily in response. Okay, let's go. I'll show you your room. But Vanessa, you know that I'm getting a job. I can only help you in the evenings. Get a job. Vanessa shrugged. We'll adjust your schedule so you can get everywhere. Kelly was a little embarrassed that the woman had already planned everything for her, but she had no choice because Kelly had to live somewhere. The room was the smallest in the apartment, but it was cozy. There were no expensive things here. Everything was simple and practical, and Kelly was fine with that. Vanessa explained that her housekeeper had lived here for a while, and then she quit. I've been on my own with Tom ever since. Vanessa sighed. Do you know how hard it is to be alone? Come on, get settled in. And in an hour we'll have tea." And exactly an hour later they were sitting in the kitchen. Vanessa said that after her husband was gone, she was very lonely, and the children had all gone away. Vanessa sighed. The daughter lives abroad, the younger son in New York, and the eldest, well, God be with him. He's fine. Kelly realized that there was some family problem, but it was somehow not tactful to ask for more details, so she didn't say anything. Vanessa's tea was delicious, and the service was so beautiful. It was the first time Kelly drank tea from such beautiful cups. Her husband had brought them back from a business trip. I don't remember where he went. Vanessa explained, noticing Kelly looking at the patterns on the cup. "Real Chinese porcelain. Well, we've had our tea, and that's enough. Why don't you tidy up the place and be careful with the cups? Tom and I are going to go and have a rest." And she and the cat, who sat in her arms like a wooden one, left the kitchen and looked in again. Then washed the window here, because something dusty already. Badly last week. Probably the housekeeper cleaned. And also go to the store. I'll make you a list. And I also need to water the flowers in the living room and loosen them. Oh, it's the other way around. Vanessa, I have to go to the dorms to get my stuff. Kelly barely got a word in between the hostess's instructions. You'll do everything, and then you'll go. Vanessa shrugged her lips. I'll remind you that you're living here for free, so you have to help me for that. Kelly nodded in response. What to do? She had no other option. She would have to adjust to Vanessa. In the evening, Kelly finally went to the dormitory to get her things. Grandma Wendy was on watch. So, Kelly, are you talking to Vanessa? When she saw the girl, the old lady was the first to speak. I did. Kelly nodded tiredly. I see she's already filling you with errands. Wendy grinned. Oh, sister. She's used to having everyone running around her. Don't be mad, baby. I just want what's best for you. She's not bad. You just have to find an approach to her. Kelly just smiled back. And Wendy herself, I wondered if she'd found an approach to her sister. But come on, it's not like living on the street. What a nice place. The next day, Kelly decided to go to the nearest schools in the neighborhood. Maybe she'd get lucky. At the first school, they looked at her like she was an alien. What are the stakes? We've been staffed for years, only professionals. At the second school, they asked for her diploma. Oh, you have a C for literature? The principal exclaimed, looking at the diploma insert. You coped with the university program, and now you want to work in a school. What will you teach your children? This is the only C. Kelly replied with a grudge, and I got it the first time, while others took it 3 times. And I'm not interested in others. With a grin replied the principal. You came to us. It is not knowing whether you really studied. Maybe you bought a diploma in the crosswalk. That was too much, but Kelly just flashed a glare, said nothing and left, slamming the door. C's. You'd think that only those who graduated with a red diploma would work at this very ordinary school. Kelly was moved to tears by the unfounded accusations. She had studied conscientiously for 5 years, was one of the most successful students in the course, and here's some nasty suspicions. Say, bought a diploma. Why are they talking to her like that? In the third school, she found the answer to this question. The administration wasn't there, but the words of the eager technician explained everything to Kelly. What are you, sweetie? No one will take you from the street, said the woman when she heard that Kelly was looking for a job. They have their own rules here, matchmaker, brother, neighbor, and so on. Besides, the old teachers take 2 jobs and will never give them to anyone in their life. It's only on TV they say that young people don't go to school, but in reality they have all taken their places and can't be moved. Kelly listened to the woman and felt so sad. Why did she go to school? And what a fool she had been. After all, the director of the Lyceum offered her a job then, and she still thought. Now it's too late. Back in the apartment, Kelly immediately received an assignment to take out the trash, take things to the dry cleaners, and go to the pharmacy for vitamins for the cat. Kelly, get exactly the vitamins I wrote down. Vanessa held out a piece of paper with the name of the medication and the money. Kelly nodded tiredly and left the apartment again. She wanted to get some rest after running around school. Her head hurt a little. The girl swallowed the pill and quickened her step. Now she would do everything, go back to her room and lie down. What did you buy? Vanessa was indignant when Kelly returned and gave her the jar of vitamins and the change. It's a different manufacturer. But the pharmacy said there was no difference. It had the same ingredients. Kelly objected. How much do you understand? These pills make Tom dizzy. Kelly shrugged her shoulders and laughed to herself. How did Vanessa know that Tom was dizzy? Had he told her that? But her mood soured when Vanessa told her that in addition to the utility bills, Kelly now owed for those vitamins. Vanessa, I haven't even earned a penny yet. The girl almost begged. I'll pay it all back, only a little later. And I wondered where they would take you, such a foolish girl. Vanessa grinned back. You know what, girl? You should make up your mind. I'm not doing charity work. Oh, by the way, do the dishes in the kitchen. And she and the cat went to her room. And Kelly stared at the sink full of dishes. When had that woman gotten so many dishes dirty? Kelly had left the kitchen perfectly clean this morning. And somehow it's strange. In fact, she performs the functions of a housekeeper, and she has to pay for accommodation. Food was out of the question. Kelly ate in the canteen, and here in the apartment only tea and drank. After a week, the girl realized that she and Vanessa would not be able to live under the same roof for long. Instructions came like from the horn of plenty, as soon as Kelly stepped over the threshold. And then there's the ridicule. What kind of school is this? The landlady liked to say, scrubbing floors, that's what you do. And you're a troublemaker, just like my eldest son. He's a troublemaker too. All his life he was fussing, looking for a better life, not listening to his mother. And now what? Kelly wouldn't listen to her, but Vanessa went on. He was looking for love, and then he found himself an otter. He wouldn't listen to his mother. He lives with her, almost never comes to see me. Once a year he checks if she's still alive. It's fine that he got a higher education. He's still a fool. And so are you. What's the use of your diploma when you don't know anything about life? What do I know? Kelly asked resentfully. For this life with teeth should be grasped, and where necessary, and go over the heads. And you don't have it in you. You're spineless. Listening to Vanessa's insults, the girl did not want to listen anymore. She gathered her things, threw the key on the nightstand in the hallway, and went to the exit. What a touchy one. Vanessa shouted goodbye to her. Look, what a princess. Kelly didn't answer her. And only when she jumped out of the entrance, sat on a bench and cried. Maybe Vanessa was right. You have to go head to head in this life. But is it the right thing to do? Her mom always said that one should respect another person's opinion, be more tolerant, show kindness of heart. And what happened? Her mom was just over 40 when she died. She never hurt anyone in her life. She worked in a village school, and that was it. She didn't achieve anything. They even had a service apartment. After her mother died and she was taken away, Kelly herself also tried to live according to her conscience. But there was always a brazen grasp ahead. Become like that? No, disgusting. Kelly can't. What is it, sweetheart? Are you from Vanessa's? From apartment 12? She heard a woman's voice and looked up. There was an old lady standing next to her, a dandelion of a woman. Kelly nodded back. The old woman had fooled another girl again. The old woman sighed and sat down next to her, and then she told her story. It turns out that Vanessa has been practicing this for a long time. She finds girls who urgently need a place to live. Most often she finds such girls through acquaintances, so that they were decent, and as if for free, but loads her with so much work that the housekeeper has to work there from dawn to dusk. And the girls have their own lives and their main job. Some will live a month, some 2. There was one who lasted about a year. But you, baby, you're just a newcomer. Yeah, a little over a week. Kelly nodded. But I can't go any longer. That's right. I can't stand that woman. She's been bossy all her life. Her husband was only a boss at work, but at home he was her boss. Her children, she has 3 of them. The younger ones ran away from her as soon as they were on their feet. And the eldest, William, was always Vanessa's sort of unloved son, but he did everything for her and took her groceries and medicine, she said. And then she got fed up with him and started divorcing him and his wife. Not only that, in his youth, the man did not give life. All the bride, he was looking for a more profitable bride. And here she began. In general, he broke up with his mother in a puff of smoke and dust. He hasn't come to visit for a year now, but he calls, that's for sure. He sends her food and money through his driver. Vanessa keeps crying, saying she's poor and unhappy. She's insolent. Let her live with her bald man and her cat. And you, little girl, are right not to put up with it. It's better to live on the street than with such a landlady, said the old lady and went to the entrance, and Kelly only smiled sadly. It's good to think like that when you have a place to live. But what should she do? She decided to call her friends. Nancy was very happy when she heard her friend and immediately bragged that her father had arranged a job for her as a secretary in one of the institutions of the city. Nancy, I don't have a place to live. Kelly shared her distress. No way. That's the trouble. Oh, but I don't know what I can do to help you. Can I stay with you for a few days? I'll find something later. I've got some money left over from my old job at the stall. I think I can find something cheap. Oh, really? Nancy exclaimed. Kelly, I'd love to, but I can't. When they rented out my apartment, the owners told me not to have any guests, because you know what niggers are like, they'll rat you out. Okay, I'm sorry to bother you, Nancy. No, it's fine. You call me if you need anything. And Nancy disconnected the phone first. There you go. Kelly grinned sadly. One less friend, but Lisa shouldn't say no, she's easier. Where's it going? Lisa, as soon as she heard Kelly's problem, told her that she had already met a great guy, and now he was living at her place, and the apartment was a studio. Once again, Kelly apologized for disturbing the peace of her friend. She fervently wished the girl to solve all her problems soon. Kelly, I'm sure everything will be fine. You just keep your head up. You will definitely everything will work out, Lisa said. Kelly was the first to interrupt the conversation. She didn't really want to call Kathy. They'd always gotten on a little better somehow. Kathy is mocking, sarcastic even. Kelly was always a little uncomfortable with her remarks, but she called, What are you crying about? Kathy exclaimed when she heard Kelly sniffle as she recounted her misfortune. Well, get on the first bus and go to the end of the line. I'll meet you at the stop. Kathy, what about your aunt? Kelly asked shyly. She wouldn't like having a stranger in the apartment. My Aunt Miranda is a worldly woman. Of course we'll be a little cramped, but we'll get by. I can't just leave you on the street. We're friends." "Thank you, Kathy." "Sneeze again, Kelly. I thought you'd say no, too." "What do you mean, too?" "So, Nancy, did Lisa call yet?" Rats. Kathy was outraged. Well, to hell with them. Let them go on with their lives. But you go to my place. Soon the girls met at the bus stop, hugged each other, and Kelly was met at the apartment by a young and pretty woman, about 30 years old. "And this is my aunt." Kathy introduced her with a smile. "Aunt Miranda, my mom's younger sister." "Oh, Kathy, if you call me auntie again, I'll drag you away by your ears." The relative laughed with a white-toothed smile. "I'm Miranda. I think there used to be such a series." Kelly smiled. "Oh, baby, my life is cooler than any show." Miranda laughed, and then the three of them drank tea in the kitchen and talked about nothing. Kelly was melting her soul. Yes, she'd been wrong about Kathy. Kathy was the only one to give her a helping hand in a difficult situation, and Miranda was so friendly. My auntie would give any man a head start. Kathy whispered to Kelly in the late afternoon when they were already asleep on the sofa. "She's a racer." "A racer? How come you never told me about her before?" "Yes, she and my mother quarreled more than 10 years ago. My mother and grandparents wanted her to continue the family tradition. She also went to the Pedagogical Institute, and Miranda sent everyone far away and got a job in the city in a cafe as a waitress. Then she met her first husband, and he left her this apartment when they separated. By then she'd opened a little store. She started selling car parts, not groceries. She met a customer at the store, a professional race car driver. He became her second husband. She started riding with him, and then she split up with him. But they're still friends, unlike the first one. They continue to participate in all sorts of motorsport competitions together. And the store? It's a store. Miranda runs it, and she hired me as a sales girl." "Kathy, you went into sales? I don't understand. Why did you go to college? You sound just like my mother, higher education and all that. What do I need that education for? To earn pennies? No, I'll earn much more here, and I like it. Maybe you'll find yourself a racing driver husband too. It's not out of the question." And the girls laughed, so much so that Miranda from the next room said sleepily, "Girls, it's nighttime." Kelly and Kathy fell silent, but for a long time they whispered about their own girlish things. In the morning they went about their business. Kelly decided to go to school again, as she had another school in mind. The principal, a middle-aged man, received her immediately. He looked at her silently for a long time while she explained how she loved children and dreamed of working at the school. But he didn't even look at her diploma. "Do you have a medical book?" the principal asked with interest. "Yes, of course." Kelly nodded. "And you went through everything there? All the tests? The gynecologist?" The director licked his lips and grinned wickedly. "All of them," Kelly answered, and she herself just shuddered from his grin and prickly eyes. "Well then, come back tomorrow. Write an application. We'll take you to social pedagogues." "Why social pedagogues? I'm an English teacher." "Well, we only have a social pedagogue position available, but if you and I work together, we'll see what we can do." Kelly nodded and stormed out of the office. The girl cried with embarrassment and indignation. Is that what he was implying now? This principal? What a horror! She would never set foot in that school again as long as there were such leaders. After that, Kelly sat in the park for a long time thinking. Maybe she was going down the wrong road. If she couldn't get a job at her school, then maybe she shouldn't. Maybe Kathy was right to go to work at the store. And as if on purpose, on her way home, she saw an ad on the door of one of the supermarkets announcing that they needed sales clerks and cashiers. She immediately went in and asked about the vacancy and was gladly hired. One more salesperson in this world, Miranda joked, when she found out where Kelly had gotten the job. You're doing the right thing. You've got to be able to move on in this life. Yeah, one more salesman, and somewhere out there in another life crying, unrecognized teacher. Kathy picked up on that. It's okay, life is long, maybe I'll work in a school, but for now I have to earn a living. I can't stay with you forever, answered Kelly. Yes, Kelly, you're doing the right thing. Miranda agreed. No, I'm not hounding you, but you have your own life. So, Auntie, should I look for something for myself too? Jokingly asked Kathy. Oh, Kathy, I still have to marry you, and then you'll move out. And there, you'll see and my parents and your mother, for this good deed, I will thank me. You're looking for a millionaire. Kathy wouldn't stop. Yeah, now a millionaire, I'll need one myself. The aunt and her niece joked and laughed heartily, and Kelly laughed with them. So easily and quickly they were suddenly friends, and Kathy opened up to her in a new way. A true friend, one of 3 left. Kelly blended into the new team quickly and easily. Working in the trade was already familiar to her. Of course, there was a big store, but the principle of work had not changed. Be polite, smile, and keep an eye on the availability of goods. Kelly didn't get a job at the cash register right away. I had to work in the sales area, but after a month or so, the girl sat behind the cash register. Here was more responsible, but Kelly was not afraid. She knew how to count money. With customers was friendly. Once before closing time, a young man ran into the store, quickly dived between the rows, and in just a minute was at the cash register. Just a sprinter. Kelly smiled to herself and punched a can of drink. 120, she said. The guy reached into his pocket for his wallet, his face stretched out. Did I leave my wallet at home? He mumbled confusedly. Young lady, you wait please. I'll run to get the money. I'm not far away. I live next door. We are already closing. Monotonously for Kelly, answered her partner Molly. Come back tomorrow, young man. Yes, I need to now. I'll fall asleep without energy, and I still have half the night to work. And what do you work? Kelly asked me. I'm nothing important, answered the guy, continuing to feel his pockets in the hope of finding at least some change. But if it's not important, then all the more so, Molly said firmly. Molly, wait. Kelly stopped her gently and turned to the guy. I have already punched the goods anyway. Let me put my money in now, and you'll bring it to me tomorrow? I work in the morning. The guy nodded gratefully in response and vowed to be at the store at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Kelly, are you stupid? Molly asked her. As soon as the guy disappeared with the purchase. You do realize you gave this guy his shopping spree, right? I think he's coming. With a smile, Kelly replied, I can see he's honest. They're all honest as long as they want something. Molly grinned. You're a simple soul, and if you keep doing that, you'll be working for thanks. But I was wrong, Molly. In the morning at exactly 9 o'clock, as promised, the guy was already in the store. He gave Kelly the money and then held out a modest bouquet of chrysanthemums. Here you go. Oh, come on. Kelly was embarrassed. No, you don't. Yes, you do. The guy was staring at Kelly with his eyes wide open. Such a beautiful girl deserves to be given flowers every day. My name's Kevin, by the way. Kelly, I know. The guy smiled, nodding at his name tag, and the two of them laughed merrily. In the evening, Kevin waited for Kelly outside the store, walked her home, and told her about himself. He, like Kelly, had come to the city from the country. He was good at sports at school, especially good at soccer. He went to a physical education technical school. At first, he played in a soccer team for his school, then for the city. He went to various competitions, showed great promise, and then an injury. And now he works at a sports school as a coach. You said yesterday you were working nights? Kelly remembered. Hey, Kevin brushed it off. Yes, I watch the matches. It's very important for my work. I watch, I memorize. I see. Kelly nodded. Good for you. You work by profession anyway, and I'm a teacher of English language and literature, and I sit at the cash register. So you're a teacher? Kevin was surprised. We're almost colleagues? Sort of. Kelly laughed. They agreed to meet the next night and said goodbye, just shaking hands. Kathy, I met such a cute guy. Kelly was telling her friend. He's a soccer player. Wow. Miranda overheard and jumped in. What team does he play on? He doesn't play on any team. He works at a sports school now. Kelly shrugged. He's a great guy. Dude, they're all great until they get their way. Kathy sighed. You'd better be careful with him. Get to know him first. You sound just like your mommy. Kelly dismissed it. No, Kathy's right. Miranda agreed with her niece. Who knows about that athlete? Before you know it, you'll be with child. And your soccer player will be out of the picture. I wasn't thinking of anything like that. Kelly blushed. You should think about it. Miranda said instructively. Okay, girls, let's go to sleep. Kelly couldn't sleep half the night, thinking about Kevin. No, he's nice. He's really nice. Soon they started dating. Kevin was staying in a friend's house too. After a bit of thinking, they decided to rent a small apartment, old, unrenovated, almost without furniture. There was only a sofa, a table, and an old refrigerator. But it was cheap. Miranda and Kathy helped Kelly make some minor repairs and left, making her promise that if anything went wrong, they'd kick Kevin to the curb. Kelly promised, even though she knew she wouldn't send him away, because she loved him with all her heart. And a couple months later, they signed, simply, without guests and outfits, decided that the money is not enough. Why splurge? Especially since Kevin's parents are old and live far away. Kelly has no family at all. Miranda and Kathy have gotten distant lately. They've got their own lives. Better save up for a down payment on a mortgage. They were thinking of buying this place in the future. So what if it's old? They'll renovate it. They had a real honeymoon. Or rather, a week when they got time off work. No, they didn't go abroad or to the sea. They just had a good time together. They walked around the city, rode the river streetcars, just enjoyed each other. And Kelly, that was enough. The first problem started when Kevin got into trouble at work. One of his students was injured during warm-ups, and Kevin was blamed for it. Oversight. The kid had powerful parents, and Kevin was fired. Kelly was the main target, but she took it calmly because she was sure that Kevin will soon find a new job. And what happened at the old one was just an unfortunate misunderstanding. A month went by. Kevin couldn't find anything. Why don't you try being a security guard? Kelly suggested it. There's an opening at our store. Are you kidding me? That's when Kevin got mad. I'm an athlete first and foremost, and you're telling me to sit around. No, I've got a couple other options. They should call soon. But no one called him. Kevin sat on the couch all day, watching TV, more and more soccer games. Coming home from work at night, Kelly would start washing dirty dishes in the sink, cooking dinner, cleaning up. On her timid remarks, say, "You can do something around the house for the day," Kevin replied that this is not a man's work. And why did I marry you if I myself will cook soup and wash socks?" he said. Once again he pressed the button on the remote control, and into the apartment burst another broadcast of a soccer match, and money was in short supply. So Kelly found a part-time job. She got a job on an educational website as a supervisor. Checked the work of guys who were preparing for exams on online courses. An old laptop, which the woman bought not so long ago, became a good assistant. Of course, he did not solve all the material problems, but now it was possible not to puzzle over what to pay for the apartment. After a while, Kevin began to leave the house in the evenings. He'd come in the morning. He smelled of booze. To all Kelly's questions, he'd say, "He's a man, he's entitled. What do you have a right to?" One day, Kelly couldn't take it anymore and she started screaming. "Go out at night, drink on my money?" "Oh, that's how you talk." Kevin got angry. "So it's your money?" "I thought it was mutual. We're like a family, but you're the man. You're kind of the breadwinner." "I know we're a family. Do you?" "Kevin, when I married you, I thought we were gonna work things out together. And you put it all on me. You sit in front of the TV all day, and now you're drinking." Kelly yelled, "Yeah, it's a mess, but it has to be dealt with. What kind of man are you? You sit on my neck and you're happy. Oh, you don't like me as a man?" Kevin caught on to the word and took a swing. That night he hit Kelly for the first time, slapped her. The woman cried in the kitchen all night. In the morning, on his knees, Kevin apologized. He swore that soon everything would change. He would find a job. Kelly wouldn't have to work 2 jobs and sleep 4 o'clock a night. Yeah, things would change. And Kelly believed him and decided to forget the slap. After all, she provoked it. Shouldn't have charged him when he'd been drinking. After a week, Kevin had really changed. Eyes lit up. Drove around, made a couple phone calls. One morning, he showed up at Kelly's, clean-shaven and in a suit. "Where are you going?" Kelly gasped. "I got a job," proudly replied Kevin. "One of my friends offered me a job with a rich family, to accompany the child to school, to pick him up from school. I'll drive him around." "Kelly, would you have seen that car?" "It's a dream, the latest model." Kelly didn't know much about car brands, so it didn't make a big impression on her, but she was so happy. Finally, the black streak in their lives was over. Now Kevin would get a grip on his head and everything would be fine. Also, the kid's mother found out I was a soccer player and asked me to tutor her son. Not for free, of course. "Anyway, Kelly, we're gonna make a life, you and me," Kevin said, and then laughing happily, he picked Kelly up and took her for a spin. And she laughed. Now they'll be healed. But Kathy, when she called her friend to see how she was doing, didn't share her joy. You should find out who this family is, what the guy does for a living, what his wife looks like. Or look, this employer with your husband. Kathy warned me. "Nonsense, you say." Kelly dismissed it. She didn't even think it was possible. After 2 months, Kelly noticed that Kevin was coming home later and later. One night he didn't come home at all, and the next evening he showed up smelling of women's perfume. Kelly found traces of lipstick on his shirt, and she made a huge scene. Screaming, crying, blaming her husband, and he looked at her with a grin. "You chicken." Finally he said, "Have you looked at yourself in the mirror long ago? When was the last time you were in the hairdresser? And what are you wearing? Have you ever heard of dresses? Always in the same jeans and stretchy sweatshirts." "I don't have time for salons." With resentment, Kelly said, "I've been working 2 jobs, and I'm still working 2 jobs. I don't see your paycheck. Okay, first, you said you had to dress appropriately. Then you had to get a bodyguard's license, also for a fee. Meanwhile, I was paying rent, buying groceries. Where's your paycheck? In a safe place. Kevin grinned cheekily. And it's none of your business. What do you mean? That's what I mean. Chicken. I'm leaving you. Kelly's eyes darkened when she heard that. No, it can't be. He's just telling her to spite her, because they love each other. You disgust me. Kevin said angrily, I'm in a relationship, and you should know who I'm in a relationship with. You'll never be like that. Jenna, she's wonderful. Jenna, who's that? The woman who hired me. What about her family? She has a son, a husband. No husband. He died a year ago. But Liam and I got along, and he doesn't mind calling me Dad. After Kevin said that, he started packing his things. Kelly sat silently watching. There were no more tears. The man she loved so much, the one she would turn herself inside out for, had betrayed her in such a despicable way. Kevin, as if nothing had happened, was rummaging through his closet. His cell phone rang. Yes, honey. Yeah, I talked to her. He said cheerfully into the receiver and looked at Kelly with a sneer. It's okay, come on over. Kelly felt as if she had been punched in the face by those words. She jumped up and started to push Kevin out of the apartment, and he only laughed. Kelly, you're a loser, he said to her already on the doorstep, slinging his bag over his shoulder. You realize life is a game, and you'll always be on the losing side. Go away already, Kelly whispered helplessly. I can't see you anymore. And life will put everything in its place. Let's see which one of us loses. Kevin laughed and walked out, slamming the door. Kelly slid down the wall and howled like a wounded wolf. She didn't go to work in the morning. She called in sick. She was indeed sick. Her soul ached from the betrayal of her loved one. All day she lay on the couch, curled up, and in the evening the doorbell rang. Kevin's back. He's changed his mind. She would forgive him. Kelly jumped up from the couch, but Kathy was there. Hello, friend, Kathy said cheerfully. Why do you look so bad? Are you sick? And why is your cell phone unavailable? I've been calling. I was worried about you. Must be dead. Kelly remembered and hurried to turn her phone back on. What if Kevin called? But no, he didn't. Tell me about it. Kathy didn't ask, she demanded. And then Kelly burst into tears. She sobbed. She fell on her friend's shoulder and talked, while Kathy listened and grew more and more gloomy. What a bastard, she said when she found out. I always knew he was a bastard. I didn't like him, but on the other hand, it's a good thing I did. Kelly, imagine if you had a child. How much worse would that be? Kathy, I kind of am. Kelly sobbed. What? Are you pregnant or something? Kathy exclaimed. Kelly just nodded. She'd been meaning to tell Kevin, but she'd been putting it off, waiting for the right opportunity, and it hadn't presented itself. Don't tell him, Kathy advised. Find a good doctor. He'll do it, and you'll forget the whole story like a bad dream. No doctor, whispered Kelly. Kathy, I can't do this. Why not? Can you imagine being alone with a baby? I do, 'cause my mom raised me alone too. I can do it. Kathy, I was up all night tonight thinking. You know, this baby is a part of me. It's like taking a piece of my heart. I can't do it. Well, then we gotta get this creep back into the family. We have to tell him about the baby. That's not necessary. Kathy, I thought he was coming back tonight. I mean, we had a fight. He'd make something up out of anger. But he didn't. I'm looking at his face right now before he left. Kathy, he's happy with someone else. He doesn't need me or the baby. We'll see about that. Kathy was angry. No, this creep is going to enjoy his life, and you're here with his baby. You can't do that. At least let him pay child support. In vain, Kelly asked Kathy not to tell Kevin about the baby. She found him anyway and told him everything. They met at the coffee shop. What does she want from me? Kevin shrugged. I'm not sure it's my baby at all. Who was she hanging around her store with? Anyway, if she thinks I'm going to pay her child support, she's wrong. She's not getting a dime from me. I'll prove the baby's not mine. But it's your baby. I'll prove it's not mine. Kevin grinned cheekily. At that time, a spectacular blonde girl, a little older than Kevin, and a boy of about 10 years old came to the table. Honey, here we are. The woman smiled. Lunch? Yes, Jenna, of course. Kevin smiled eagerly. He jumped up from his seat, helping the woman sit down, then sat the boy down. Tousled his hair affectionately, and he smiled back. What an idyll. Kathy couldn't stand it any longer and stood up. Are you aware, dear Jenna, that your Kevin is about to become a father? Jenna, don't listen. Kelly's making it up. Kevin started to justify himself. Jenna grimaced and looked squeamishly at Kathy. I realize you're a friend of Kelly's, so give her some friendly advice about terminating the pregnancy and staying out of our family. Kevin and I are a family. We've already filed the divorce papers with your Kelly. Kathy smirked. Aha. She said nothing more and walked away from the ugly couple and the spoiled boy who sat with his feet up on a neighbor's chair. How to help her friend? Kathy decided not to say anything to her about the meeting at the cafe, so as not to upset Kelly further. At first, Kelly felt as if her soul had been ripped out of her, but gradually she began to come to her senses, and even the divorce went completely calm, and she didn't say anything about the pregnancy. Out of pride, Kevin didn't ask. He wasn't interested in Kelly's problems now. He had a new love, and Kelly lived in a modest rented apartment. She worked at the store. In due time went on maternity leave, and until the birth continued to work with her students on online courses. The labor began suddenly, rapidly, at night. She just got up from her desk, turning off her laptop, as her stomach contracted sharply. She reached for the phone with her last strength. Why did you take so long? The paramedic in the ambulance told her off on the way to the hospital. You should have been hospitalized a week ago. I couldn't. Squirming in pain, Kelly said, I have a job. Everybody's got work, sighed the paramedic, and you need to think about you and the baby right now. It's gonna be okay, Mommy. Don't worry. My son was born healthy. Dark-haired, like Kelly, Kevin's blonde. If he looks like his mommy, he'll be happy, said the nurse as she brought the baby in for his first feeding. You have a good boy. My boy, Kelly said fondly and cried. Why are you crying? You should be happy. Others dream of such happiness for years. I understand, but I'm scared. He and I are the only ones in this world. You have each other, and that's the main thing. While he's little, you'll take care of him, and when he grows up, your son will be your protector. That's right, a protector. Kelly smiled through her tears and cuddled her baby boy. She would do anything to make her baby happy. From the hospital, Kelly and Robert were picked up by Kathy and Miranda. They got ready, bought presents, and helped with everything at first. And then Kathy arrived one day confused. Kelly, I need to have a serious talk with you. What's wrong? Kelly's scared. I'm getting married. Why are you saying that like you've been hit with a bag? Dude, congratulations. Yeah, thanks, but I'm leaving. Noah's from out of town. He's got his own chain of body shops. So I've made up my mind. But that's great. Kathy, I hope you'll be happy. Yeah, he's a good guy, but I'm worried about you. You're on your own. My auntie went south too, married a southerner, sold her business, and doesn't seem to regret it. That's how fast she did it. She sends her love. Kelly, how are you gonna be all alone? Of course, Kelly was a little confused. She's used to Kathy helping her out, looking after Robert, Miranda dropping in occasionally. Now she's on her own, but Miranda and Kathy have their own lives to manage. I can manage. She nodded confidently. Don't worry about me, be happy. But we'll call you, even visit you when we can. Of course, friend. And they hugged goodbye, even cried. But we have to move on. Until the age of 1.5 years, Robert, Kelly somehow managed to make ends meet, and then from the state payments were very meager. And the courses she'd been working part-time had all but died out. There wasn't enough money for food. It all went to rent. Kelly thought about working, but she couldn't go out to the store yet. Robert had no one to leave him with. The nursery school waiting list was so long that it would be 2 more years. One day she saw an ad on a bus stop that a real estate company needed a sticker. Figured, there is obviously no rigid schedule, decided to call. Here's 1,000 flyers. Handed to her in the office of the girl administrator. For 5 days you need to go around the streets that will be on your list and paste ads. For this you will receive $20. Keep in mind that your work will be checked. The money was not much, but Kelly agreed. At least Robert would have enough for milk and cottage cheese. So she started working as a poster girl. She would get up early in the morning while Robert was sleeping and run around the neighborhood with glue and flyers. It was good where there were special boards for announcements on the entrances, but more often she had to paste them directly on the walls. Often she heard so many nasty things about herself because she was dirtying the walls. Kelly had a plan or she wouldn't get paid. One time they even let the dog loose on her. Good thing the dog was smarter than his owners. A huge Rottweiler ran up to Kelly, who was white with fear, hugged her and moved away. Oh, get out of here and don't come here again, shouted the man, the owner of the dog, as Kelly then cried on her way home, not out of fear for herself, but out of resentment. Why are people so mean? And then the minute the dog attacked her, it went through her mind. What about Robert? He's alone, he'll wake up soon. And after lunch, Kelly went to work with a baby, and there was also enough negativity. Although in the form of a child, people reacted softer. Sometimes they even helped me put a better sticker on the paper. Yes, people are different. There were also understanding. In the evening, having fed and put her son to bed, Kelly sat by the window and thought when everything would change in her life, and whether it would change. Robert was already growing out of his stuff. Good thing Kathy had sent some new suits. At least she had something to wear out. By the way, Kelly didn't complain to her friend. She said that everything with Robert was fine, but in reality it was otherwise. One day, her part-time job on the internet completely stalled. The money from the stickers went to food. The doorbell rang. Hello, darling. In the hallway stepped a full lady of about 50 years, the owner of the apartment. I thought I'd drop by and see how you were doing. Kelly was confused when she saw the landlady. She hadn't been here since she and Kevin had rented the apartment. Kelly had been making regular payments on her credit card. Evelyn, this is so unexpected, mumbled the young mother. Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. The neighbors told me that you live alone now. You have a child. Did your fool leave you? I knew he was unreliable. Anyway, that's not what I'm talking about. Kelly, I'm giving you a raise this month. Don't get me wrong. Everything's getting more expensive, and I haven't raised the price in almost 3 years, and I have expenses. I bought a car, and it's eating up so much money. How much? Kelly blurted out. How much what the car costs? Oh, the rent. I'm not being pushy. I know you have a kid, but I'm raising the price by $5,000. If you don't like it, you can move out now. I've already got someone who's willing to pay my price. Where am I going to go? Barely holding back tears, Kelly replied, I'll pay. Good. Evelyn smiled. Okay, I'm off. So it's a deal. Kelly nodded. She had no other choice. But where would she get the money? And then, for the first time, she decided to call Kevin. She should tell him that he had a child. He was a father, Robert. He could help in some way. Kevin answered her call. A woman's laughter and a boy's laughter could be heard in the background. It was clear that Kevin was quite content with life. Need a hand? He hummed into the phone. I didn't talk you into having this baby. I thought you'd made up your mind. So you knew about the baby? Kelly was stunned. Yeah, your girlfriend came to me, appealed to my conscience. Why are you surprised? I told her then and I'll tell you again. I'm not sure it's my baby. It's interesting. You kept quiet all this time, and now you've suddenly decided to confess. Why would I do that? I'm just having a really hard time. I have no money. I have to pay the rent. Forgetting her pride, Kelly said with difficulty, You know, it's not my problem. You're on your own. And he hung up. Kelly sat there like a stone. Why did she call? She'd just ruined her own mood. And Kathy, she didn't say a word the whole time. I guess she just didn't want to upset her. Maybe Kathy should call Kathy, borrow from her, and then pay her back. No, her friend wouldn't say no, and she wouldn't demand it right away. But Kelly wouldn't feel comfortable. And what would she use to pay her back? And then Kelly remembered there was something that would save her and Robert. It's some earrings her mom gave her. Mom gave them to Kelly just before she left. She never wore them herself. Kelly didn't know they existed, and Mom kept them. Said Kelly's father gave them to her. They're very expensive. Maybe you'll need them when you have a daughter. Mom whispered and with a trembling hand pulled the earrings from somewhere in the nightstand and said they were diamonds. Kelly didn't believe it then, and she didn't believe it now. She thought they were just glass, but they were precious to her as a memory of her mom, and she never wore them, and neither did her mom. They lay in her notebook bag from university, in a simple box from under lollipops. What if they really were diamonds? The next day, out for a walk with Robert, in addition to glue and advertisements, Kelly grabbed the earrings. On the way, she stopped by a pawn shop with her son. Where did you get such a miracle? Surprised, exclaimed the appraiser, just looking at the jewelry and squinted suspiciously. Looking at the modestly dressed young mother and child, whose clothes were clearly already small. It was a gift from the late mom. Kelly replied calmly. It's easy to check, nodded the appraiser. For a long time he rummaged through his papers, then looked at the earrings. Finally he named a price and asked for a passport. Almost $100,000. To Kelly, that was a lot of money. She immediately agreed to pawn them. Young lady, do you have any idea of their real value? Asked the appraiser while the documents were being drawn up. I don't know. Kelly admitted. All my life I thought they were plain, glass ones. Glass? The man laughed. Come on, I can see you really need the money. Yes, I'll throw in another $30,000, but no foreclosure. Do you agree? In principle, Kelly agreed to the first option, and she liked the second offer even more. It was just a little embarrassing. She was selling her mom's memory, but she had no other choice. and her mom would understand, and she'd never buy back those earrings. The money from the earring sale was a big help. Kelly immediately bought her son some new clothes, paid off a small utility debt, and put aside a few payments for Evelyn. The young woman realized that she couldn't be lavish, or it would be even harder, and soon she got a call from the education department. There was a vacancy in the nursery, and it was a pity to give the baby to the kindergarten, and he is not even 2 years old. But what to do? We have to live somehow. So Robert went to the nursery and Kelly went to work. Only very soon the store management started to grumble. The young mom took 2 sick days every month. Who's going to work? Soon they said they didn't want any problem employees. Well, I'm trying. Kelly justified herself. It's just that my son has recently gone to kindergarten. Children are all small, often get sick when in a new team until he is not used to it yet. How long do we have to wait for your son to get used to it? No one will pay for your sick days. Quit. That's the answer. It was no use arguing with the bosses. Kelly stayed at home for a couple months, scraping by on the internet, and mostly pulled a little bit from the untouchable reserve that was left from the earrings. We had to live on something. She didn't work as a poster girl anymore. When she went to the store, she gave it up. Now there were other workers there. They didn't need her. But one day, she got a call from the real estate office. Kelly, good afternoon. She heard the familiar voice of the receptionist, Adriana. We'd like to invite you to an interview for a vacancy. What position? Boss looked at your resume and was very surprised that a person with a higher education is quite literate, worked for us as a poster boy. There's another offer for you. Would you like to try to work as a realtor? Yeah, I don't know. I never imagined myself in this role. It is not to sell buns and apartments, but the principle is the same. Adriana laughed. You have to praise your product, that's all. Well, will you come over? You know I have a small child. It will not interfere with your work. You can always arrange a time that's convenient for both parties. I convinced Adriana. The director of the real estate firm was Sebastian, an elderly man with serious health problems. He'd had a heart condition for years, and even surgery hadn't changed anything. All because he didn't have much desire to live. After his family, his wife, daughter, son-in-law, and grandson died in a plane crash 5 years ago. The only thing that kept him in this life was his work, the work of many years. He couldn't give it all up like that. That's why he was pulling it all on his shoulders. In principle, his office was not too famous in the city and could not compete with the big competitors, but it had its price too. Not so long ago, his realtor left for another firm, more successful. Sebastian was looking for a new candidate and decided to look at the resumes of those who were hired on a fixed-term contract. Interesting. He was surprised when he read the resume of Kelly, a young woman with a higher education. Why doesn't she get a job in her specialty? Yes, it's complicated. Adriana shrugged her shoulders, and she has a small child. Call her for sure. Sebastian, I repeat, she has a small child. So, call her. So Adriana called. Kelly arrived for the interview at 3 o'clock. Sebastian saw a very young woman, almost a girl, only very tired from everyday worries. He started the conversation from afar, asked about his son, about his studies, just about life. At the end of the conversation, he already roughly realized who was sitting in front of him. A simple little knave girl who got into a difficult life, but does not give up. Sebastian decided to give her a chance. He liked her, reminded him of his late daughter. Soon Kelly got a new job. Now she's a realtor. Of course, there were a lot of difficulties, had to learn a lot. At the same time, Robert was constantly sick, but the new team was sympathetic to this. And then Kelly was lucky. She was able to sell one apartment and the second one very favorably. Buyers liked to communicate with a nice, pretty girl, while Kelly was not intrusive in her work, but at the same time was able to persuade, although about the shortcomings of apartments did not hide. This honesty was what brought her to the table. Sebastian, too, was glad he had hired this girl. Kelly did her best. Little by little, things got better between her and Robert. Now the young mother did not count the change, whether her son tomorrow will have enough for milk or not. They weren't lavish, but they weren't poor either, and then disaster struck. Sebastian collapsed in his office one morning and died immediately. His heart was failing. Kelly was very worried. She had become attached to her boss in a kindred way, and also worried about the question of what will happen to their office. The distant relative who inherited the firm was not at all interested in its development. It was a man far from business. He considered selling the firm a very troublesome business and postponed it for later. He decided to just appoint a business manager and himself to continue to live quietly, receiving dividends. He is not a young man, and why should he have these worries, business, competitors, inspections, and so on? What was Kelly's surprise when she was asked to be the manager? But I haven't worked here for a year yet. There are more experienced employees, she told Christopher, to which he showed her a letter written in Sebastian's hand. In it he, addressing Christopher, wrote that it would be right if the firm is not sold, and Sebastian would like to give a chance to the young but very capable girl Kelly. She would pull his case. It had been a few hours of waiting. Kelly had already started to doze off sitting in the car when she saw the man she needed. Michael was a very well-known man in town, in his late 40s, looking quite decent, a tall, sturdy, brown-haired man. Kelly knew he was single, but that information interested her the least. She was concerned that this man was difficult to negotiate with, but she had to at least try. Michael. She called out to the man, stepping decisively out of the car. "Excuse me, would you mind giving me a few minutes?" The man stopped and looked in surprise at the fragile brunette in a business suit. A confident look, a ringing voice, and eyes straight black, almost gypsy. Yes, Kelly had interested him at first only in appearance. No, he wasn't a ladies' man, but he noticed beautiful women. And afterwards, when they began to communicate on business, sitting in his office, Michael appreciated how smart this Kelly was. An unknown whether by her charm or her ability to persuade, but Kelly achieved that Michael's company signed a cooperation agreement with their firm. But it didn't stop there. One afternoon, Kelly's phone rang. It was Michael, and he asked Kelly out on a date. She gave it some thought and said yes. Why wouldn't she? She really liked Michael. They sat in the restaurant, talked. Michael told her about himself, that he was born in this city, grew up, studied, and even got married, but he and his wife separated after a year. They didn't have time to have a child. He's been working alone ever since. And you too, I understand, a businesswoman. Michael asked with a smile. No personal life. Kelly was just about to answer. The nanny called and excitedly informed her that Robert had a fever and the medication wasn't working. "I'll be right there." Kelly answered and looked at Michael. "You'll have to excuse me, my son is sick. I have to go right away. Why don't I give you a ride?" Michael responded immediately. He was a little surprised that such a young woman already had a son, so she had a husband. He wasn't happy about that, but his mood improved when Kelly told him that she had been raising her son alone since birth. "Now you're talking, businesswoman," she grinned. "I've worked as everything, haven't I? And cashier and salesman, even was a sticker to feed my son. But actually, I'm a teacher by profession. I see. Michael nodded. You know, life is like that. You go through a lot of things before you find your own. I wasn't originally a builder either. You won't believe it. I'm a telecommunicator by my first profession. When my wife left me, accusing me of not earning enough and all that, I was so hurt. I began to think and decide what to change in my life in the first place to prove to my wife. I built a small business with a friend, and we got with him in the 90s. We were able to rise. Now I have what I have. I don't know about my wife. She went somewhere in Siberia to her parents. I think she got married and lives in some village. To be honest, I haven't cared for a long time. So they learned a little more about each other along the way. At Kelly's house, they said goodbye and arranged to meet again. Robert turned out to be fine. The doctor from the ambulance suggested a trip to the clinic in the morning just to be on the safe side. That's all. You must have eaten a lot of ice cream? The doctor squinted slyly at the boy. Yes, there was a bucket in the freezer. I ate almost all of it. Robert lowered his head. Son, how could you do that? I told you not to eat too much, Kelly exclaimed and looked angrily at the nanny. Emily slammed her eyes shut in fright. I'm sorry. I didn't see it. Kelly just waved her hand. What can I do now? It would teach her not to buy buckets of ice cream. Michael called the next day and asked how Robert was feeling. Yes, he was fine. Kelly smiled into the phone. His throat is a little red, but he doesn't have a fever. But he had the ice cream of a lifetime. It happens. Michael laughed. I'm calling to invite you and your son to the park for the weekend. Robert will be well by the weekend, won't he? I think so. Kelly was a little embarrassed by Michael's suggestion, but at the same time she wanted to keep in touch with him, and not just for work. So of course she said yes. And that weekend the three of them were at the recreation park, riding the carousel, Robert jumping on the trampoline, riding his scooter. It was a warm summer evening. They sat at a table in a street cafe and ate barbecue with pleasure. Real men like meat. Michael winked at Robert. What's with the ice cream, right, Robert? Uh-huh. The boy replied contentedly. It's good. Why only men? Girls can eat meat too. Kelly joked. No arguments, maybe another portion, and Michael moved his plate. Kelly, smiling, took a bite, though she had more. Michael smiled too. How much did he like this sweet girl? Yes, she was younger than him by a whole 10 years, even a little more, but he was easy and simple with her, straight native. And Kelly felt, for the first time in years, that she had a man by her side. And late that night, as Michael carried the sleeping Robert home to Kelly's house, the boy suddenly woke up and wrapped his arms around the man's neck. Feverishly, he whispered in her ear, Uncle Michael, be my daddy. Kelly was close by and heard everything. She blushed as red as a cancer. Michael smiled embarrassedly. Go to sleep, son. Suddenly, he whispered and gently laid the boy on the couch. And then they sat in the living room for a long time, not knowing what to say to each other. Each had his own past offenses and disappointments, and each was afraid to be burned again. But they were drawn to each other. No more than that. They felt each other, every fiber of their being. Kelly, Michael finally spoke. I know you've been hurt in the past, and you're afraid of something like this happening again, but I can't help myself. I close my eyes and I see you. I hear your voice. I want to be with you, to love you. I want Robert to call me Daddy. I want to go fishing with him, to the woods, to play soccer with him. Not soccer. Kelly smiled sadly, and then she smiled cheerfully. Let it be tennis or volleyball, or at least checkers. Whatever you say." And Michael hugged her and stayed in their house until morning. And in the morning, when Kelly woke up, she didn't find Michael around and was very upset. Oh, stupid! She berated herself. She knew she couldn't trust men. And still she had stepped on the same rake again. He left, got what he wanted and left. She was so hurt that she cried. And then Robert and Michael came into the room. "And here we were making breakfast with Robert," said Michael. "Why are you crying?" "No, I'm just crying." Kelly quickly wiped away her tears and smiled. "What about my housekeeper?" "I gave her the day off." "You don't mind a little housekeeping, do you?" "I just want it to be just the three of us tonight." "Come on, we're making pancakes. Right, Robert?" "Yes, Dad." Robert replied happily and jumped into bed with Kelly. "Mommy, I'm so happy today." And the boy clung to his mother, and Kelly stroked his head in confusion. Yes, she had always realized that her son lacked a father's love, but she had not expected that Robert would accept so immediately. Maybe the boy had just reached out of naivete. No, he's a very cautious child. He just felt Michael as his soulmate. And just like that, Michael came into their lives. A month later, Kelly and Michael were married. It was a big wedding. Famous people of the city had fun at the wedding. The local newspapers covered it. Kathy and Miranda were at the wedding, both with their husbands, and Miranda had a belly. Just a week after the wedding, Kelly got a call from an unknown number. "Good afternoon. My name is Charles." The man introduced himself. "Kelly, I read about you in the papers. Who are you?" Kelly was surprised. "The thing is, I recently found something that I gave to my favorite girl, Camille, a long time ago." "You know Camille? That's my mom. She's no longer with us. How sad." "I don't understand." "What are you talking about?" "The diamond earrings." "Kelly, let's meet you." "I need to talk to you." Kelly agreed, but she went to the meeting with Michael. What this man wanted, she didn't fully understand. But when they met at the cafe, it suddenly became clear. Kelly was facing her father. The resemblance was uncanny. Yes, Charles was already over 50, his hair touched with gray, but his features, his eyes. Yes, Kelly looked just like her father, and he looked at Kelly without taking his eyes off of her. "God, I can't believe it." Charles whispered, "Daughter, I don't know." Kelly was confused, too. They sat down at the table. After an awkward silence, Charles pulled out earrings. They were the same earrings that Kelly had sold at a pawn shop a few years ago. Thanks to them, she and her son had survived for a while. "Kelly, I see you recognize these earrings. I'm not going to ask why you sold them. I know it wasn't for the good. Just listen to my story," Charles said. He said that almost 30 years ago, he met a girl named Camille. They fell in love, but Charles' mom got involved. She was outraged that her son, a student of a prestigious university, got involved with a simple girl from the backwoods. Yes, Camille was not a stupid girl either. She studied at a pedagogical institute, but she'd had neither parents nor money. Why would Charles want such a bride? But Charles didn't listen to her. They even applied to the marriage building. And that's when Charles gave Camille a pair of earrings. This piece of jewelry had a story of its own. The fact is that the first husband of Charles's mother died when the son was not even a year old. Soon his mother married another man. Charles was, though, the first, but unloved son. He often lived with his grandmother, mother, and father for months at a time. So when he turned 18, his grandmother gave him earrings, the family jewel. It was actually customary in our family to give them to daughters-in-law but I never liked your mom, honestly. Grandma confessed. So I procrastinated, and then my son died. So I've had the earrings all these years. I was waiting for you to get married, and then I'll give them to your wife. But I feel that I don't have long left, so I'm giving them to you now. You can give them to your sweetheart when you meet her." Soon Grandma was gone, and Charles kept the jewelry with him, never telling his mother. Then he met Camille and gave her the earrings. A month before the wedding, Charles had to go to a student conference in another city. When he returned, Camille was nowhere to be found. He looked for her, made inquiries, but nothing. It was later that he found out his mother had arranged it. Camille said he was marrying someone else, said some nasty things to her, and when Charles was looking for her, going to the police, the stepfather got involved. They didn't tell him where his Camille was. After the institute, Charles went on the party line, then got a job in the city administration. He married someone else. Charles didn't love her so much anymore, but she wasn't a bad girl either. Then his mother started to interfere again. That's when Charles had a fight with his mother once and for all. Only then she said that it was to her credit that Camille disappeared from his life. Charles decided that there was no point in looking for his beloved after so many years. He had a wife for a long time. Children never happened, but he and his wife lived normally and fought and reconciled. Everything happened. He just stopped communicating with his mother, although he still came sometimes to her house. The driver brought money and groceries. He couldn't abandon his mother, especially since his brother and sister lived far away. And recently he decided to make a gift to his wife Cindy, ordered a piece of jewelry, and there at the jeweler he saw those earrings. Their family value? The jeweler at first did not want to admit where he got this jewelry. Then he told him that he bought the earrings from a pawn shop in the city. Just in case, he even took the information about who deposited them in the pawn shop. That's how Charles found out about Kelly. Now he had no trouble finding out everything about the girl. It turned out that Kelly was the daughter of Camille. Charles learned, of course, that Camille had left the world. And then he saw the front page of the newspaper. And there was a picture that said that the previously unknown Kelly had married one of the richest businessmen in town. Charles immediately realized that his daughter was in the picture, and he saw her features. "Yes, I immediately recognized the earrings that my mother gave me," admitted Kelly, having listened to the story. "But it's still so unexpected, because my mother never told me anything about you." Camille was very proud. Charles sighed. "I blame her and I blame you, Kelly. I know you've had a hard time in your life." "It has been." Kelly nodded. "But everything's great now. But I still can't believe you're my father. We should do a DNA test, and then there will be no doubt." Michael suggested. Kelly and Charles agreed with him. And 10 days later, the results came back. Yes, Kelly and Charles were related to each other. Charles introduced his daughter to his wife Cindy. The woman, who had never had children of her own, quickly found common ground with Kelly, befriended Robert. She took a liking to Michael. They became friends, and only one thought kept Kelly in suspense. The story Charles had told her about her mother reminded her very much of another story she had heard years ago on the driveway. The time when she had cried and didn't know where to go. One day, Kelly ventured to ask her father, "What is my grandmother's name?" "You never said her name. Was it Vanessa by any chance?" Charles stared at his daughter in surprise. How would she know? And Kelly told him the story of meeting an old woman and her bald cat. "She still has that cat. My driver always freaks out when he sees it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Turns out we could have met a lot sooner." "That's unbelievable." "No, I can't believe it. I've been giving her money for all these years to do things in housekeepers, and she's been fooling young girls, but she's not doing it now. I hired her a housekeeper myself. Maybe it's another woman with a cat. Just a coincidence. Callie guessed. Well, let's not guess. Let's go. It's time for me to meet my mother. And it wasn't a coincidence. Same house, same entryway, apartment number 12. The door was opened by the same Vanessa. A little older, a little sadder, but she still had the same keen eyes. The same Tom in her arms, only older too. Charles, the woman gasped. Have you decided to visit your decrepit mother? You're not that old, Mom. Charles replied, but I've decided that it's time for us to put an end to this feud. Did you realize you were wrong? Vanessa threw her head back in victory. The cat in her arms meowed something sharp. I don't want to find out more about who was right and who was wrong. I just want you to meet your granddaughter. This is Kelly. The woman squinted her eyes. Kelly looked at her grandmother with a smile. She had long ago forgiven her for all the wrongs she had done to her. Her own grandmother stood before her. I've seen you somewhere, Vanessa said, puzzled. Of course you have. Kelly nodded. I bought the wrong vitamins for your Tom once. Vanessa froze at those words and then clutched at her heart. Yes, she remembered her lodger, who had run away from her so quickly. She was a stubborn girl like her father. Nothing happened to Vanessa. She was more playing. Though she was sincerely surprised that her son had a grown-up daughter. And most importantly, she already knew her. When Vanessa heard that Camille, the same Camille, was long gone, she thought for a while. She was silent for a long time, and then she said, I'm sorry, son. Perhaps I was wrong, and you, my granddaughter, forgive me. Charles hugged his mother. He had forgiven her long ago. They were family, and Kelly decided not to remember all the wrongs. We have to move on. Why touch old wounds? She introduced Vanessa to her family, and the old lady melted when she saw little Robert. Charles is small. She gave her verdict and kissed her great-grandson on the top of his head. Robert was delighted. He now had a daddy, a mommy, a grandmother and grandfather, a great-grandmother, and a bald cat. The boy immediately demanded that his mom buy him one. Oh, no, son. Callie laughed. Let me and Daddy get you a simple kitten. Why don't you like my Tom? Vanessa even took offense. I like him, but he's very unusual. Kelly confessed, and everyone laughed. Another year passed. Kelly and Michael were expecting a new addition to the family. Soon they would have another son. One day they were walking together in the park. Michael and Robert ran a little ahead on the path when suddenly someone called Kelly. She looked back, and it was Kevin sitting on a bench. Kelly hardly recognized him. Sloppily dressed, stubbled, clearly hungover. Hi, muffled, Kevin said and got up from the bench. I thought I was mistaken. I thought so too. Kelly replied, How are you? I'm fine, and you? Oh, it's all gone to shit. Jenna kicked me out, left me without a dime, and now I'm living in an abandoned house on the edge of town. Robert came running up to Kelly. Is that my son? Kevin's eyes lit up. No, that's my son, replied for Kelly Michael, who also came up behind the child and realized who was talking to his wife. Yes, I'm sorry, mumbled Kevin. I must have made a mistake. Kelly and Michael walked away, Robert leading the way down the path, Michael holding her hand gently. There was another life beating beneath her heart, and Kelly didn't want to look back. Yes, life, the game. Sometimes it feels like you've been defeated, destroyed, abandoned, but it only feels like that. It's only the first round. There's the rest of your life ahead of you, and it may happen that if you lose once, you win much more later.